When Fatal Fury 3 was released in 1995, it made history by being SNK's most lore-heavy title, even to this day. The narrative was so deep that an official companion book was published in Japan detailing the lore of the game. Of course, that book was never translated. What made understanding the story even more difficult was the fact that the English translation of the game took odd liberties with both the character interactions and even the game's instruction manual. But I wanted to take on the challenge and compile the true story of this incredible game. In order for me to do that, I had to get the companion book, but that was no easy feat as it is quite rare. Luckily, I was able to win a bidding auction on a Japanese website. Next, due to my elementary level of Japanese, I had to hire a translator to help me understand the contents of the book. Next step was getting the right translation for the in-game quotes and endings. Luckily, I stumbled upon the Mad SNK Project website, where a talented fan, Mars, has redone all of the translation of the in-game quotes. It was not until then that I was able to start putting all the information together and started working on a script. And that is even before the grueling months-long editing process. But now that all of that is behind us, I am happy to present to you the full, incredible story and lore of Fatal Fury 3, compiled and told for the first time outside of Japan. While not required, I highly advise you to watch my previous story recaps of the prelude to the series, as well as the one for Fatal Fury 1 and Fatal Fury 2. Links are in the description. Now, without further ado, let's check the complete story of Fatal Fury 3. With Wolfgang Krauser dead, Geese Howard's nefarious plan was set in motion. Unknown to everyone, Geese had not perished from his fall at the end of the first Fatal Fury game. At the last moment, he unleashed a Reppuken just before impact, breaking his fall enough to survive, though gravely injured. Legend has it that due to the fact that he had one of the Immortality Scrolls with him, it protected him from imminent death. Helped by his loyal bodyguards, Ripper and Hopper, Geese quickly vanished from the scene. To erase any suspicion, rumors spread that a disfigured body of a homeless person had been used as a decoy, ensuring the world believed Geese was dead. Faking his death had been Geese's plan all along. He sought to turn his enemies against each other while he prepared for his true objective, gathering the Scrolls of Immortality. Only a few of Geese's subordinates knew the truth, including Billy Khan, who was shocked to see his master alive. This revelation explained Billy's sudden departure from his fight against Wolfgang Krauser and his return to Geese's side as a loyal enforcer. His mission, dictated by Geese, was to use the distraction of the King of Fighters tournament to steal the scroll hidden within Stroheim Castle. Meanwhile, Geese relocated to England to recover from his wounds and train for his inevitable return. Now 3 years after his defeat at the King of Fighters tournament, he possessed 2 of the secret scrolls. With only one left to complete the prophecy, Geese was ready to make his next move. The last scroll was the only one left within the Jin family line. The only surviving descendants of the lineage were 2 twin boys, Jin Chonshu and Jin Chonrei. These 2 young boys lost their parents at a young age and had to live in an orphanage. Their story almost mimicked that of Terry and Andy, yet unlike the Bogart brothers, who found a gentle soul in Jeff Bogart to take them under his wing, Chonshu and Chonrei were alone and had to fight for their survival. The twins were always bullied, pushed to their limits, and at one point were beaten within an inch of their lives. The anger towards the world filled their small hearts and attracted the spirits of their ancestors, Jin Oryu's twin sons, Kairyu and Kuryu. It turned out that Oryu's sons were cursed and their souls had been trapped. For 2000 years, Kuryu and Kairyu had been looking for the perfect bodies to reincarnate in, and due to Chonrei and Chonshu also being twins and the closest in appearance to their original ones, the souls of Kuryu and Kairyu inhabited the young orphans. But this possession was only temporary. In order for them to fully take over their bodies and become immortal, they needed to find what they once had and lost: the 3 Scrolls of Immortality. And just as fate would have it, someone was watching the brothers as their bodies were taken over by the spirits of their ancestors. This person happened to be in the right place at the right time, and the brothers felt he could help them locate the missing scrolls. That person was Ryuji Yamazaki. Yamazaki was a known violent criminal and arms dealer who previously had ties to the Yakuza before leaving for Hong Kong and becoming a well-known figure among the triads. But what Yamazaki was known for most was that he got things done. And that was exactly what the twins needed. The Hong Kong police had been on his trail for years, led by the talented martial artist Hon-Fu. Yamazaki, after learning of the scroll's existence, agreed to help the twins, but his motives were his own. He had no interest in the legend of immortality. What truly intrigued him was the possibility that bringing the scrolls together would lead him to Jin Oryu's long-lost treasure and fortune, which had supposedly vanished after the warlord's demise. Wasting no time, Yamazaki set out for South Town, intent on making a statement the moment he arrived. His first move was to track down the newly returned Geese Howard. It didn't take long for Geese's men to catch wind of his plans, and they quickly moved to intercept him. But to the shock of everyone familiar with the notorious enforcers of Geese, Ripper and Hopper, the 2 ruthless bodyguards were effortlessly beaten down by Yamazaki. Now that he was back in South Town, Geese Howard believed it was time to purge his city once again and restore it to the era of dominance he once ruled with an iron fist. The newly re-elected mayor of South Town attempted to resist Geese's return, but was swiftly put in his place. As rumors of the scrolls continued to spread, Geese saw an opportunity to turn the chaos to his advantage. He ordered Billy Khan to circulate word at the famed Pow Pow Cafe that the scrolls were hidden somewhere in South Town. By fueling speculation in the city's most popular gathering place, where both new challengers and old enemies often met, Geese hoped to draw all his adversaries into one place. Once they arrived, he would be waiting to deal with them personally. Speaking of Pow Pow Cafe, the famed restaurant had been thriving under the ownership of Richard Meyer. Business was so successful that Richard decided to expand, opening a second location, Pow Pow Cafe 2. To manage the new establishment, he sought out someone who shared his passion for capoeira and the spirit of the fight. That person was Bob Wilson, a skilled capoeira fighter from Brazil. Bob had been a fan of Richard ever since he first heard of him during the King of Fighters tournament and had always dreamed of training under him. Richard was a legend in Brazil, and when the opportunity arose to manage Pow Pow Cafe 2, Bob jumped at the chance without hesitation. To celebrate the grand opening of the cafe, Richard decided to invite the Bogart brothers to the opening ceremony. Getting in touch with Andy was easy, as the Kopoken master had taken over the Shiranui dojo alongside Mai after the recent passing of her grandfather, Hanzo Shiranui. However, reaching Terry Bogard proved far more difficult. The lone wolf had been traveling the world in search of worthy opponents, rarely staying in one place for long. By chance, Richard's contacts in South America caught wind of Terry, having spotted him in the middle of a martial arts match. Acting quickly, Richard sent word to Terry, who, after hearing the invitation, accepted and set his course for South Town, for the first time in 2 years. Upon his arrival, Terry was shocked by what he saw. Southtown had fallen deeper into poverty and chaos. The once vibrant city seemed to have lost what little hope it had left. For a brief moment, Terry questioned whether defeating Geese had been the right decision. Had the city truly been better off without its sinister emperor? Or had it simply traded one form of suffering for another? Geese's plan was set into motion. Billy had spread the rumor of the Scrolls being in Southtown, and soon word had traveled far beyond the city's borders. Fighters from around the world caught wind of the news, each with their own reasons for getting involved. Among those who learned of the rumor was Cheng Xin-zan, a wealthy businessman and information broker. Having a close friendship with Joe Higashi, Cheng wasted no time reaching out to the Muay Thai champion, informing him of the unfolding events. Joe, understanding the gravity of the situation, knew he couldn't sit this one out. Without hesitation, he decided to leave Thailand and return to Southtown, ready to reunite with the Bogart brothers once again. Cheng also passed the information to Hon-Fu, the skilled detective from Hong Kong who had been on Yamazaki's trail for years. When Cheng informed him that Yamazaki had left Hong Kong and was now in Southtown searching for the scrolls, it was all the justification Hon-Fu needed. The tip was enough for him to get approval from his superiors to follow the dangerous criminal to the United States. The stage was quickly being set. Warriors from all corners of the world were converging on Southtown, drawn by the mystery and power of the legendary scrolls. Other fighters were also drawn to the battle. One of them was the Buddhist monk Sokaku Mochizuki, the leader of the Mochizuki clan. The Mochizuki clan had long been rivals of the Shiranui. While the Shiranui style focused on hand-to-hand combat and ninjutsu, the warriors of the Mochizuki clan were fighter monks who specialized in hunting and exterminating demons. When Sokaku sensed the demonic energy of the scrolls, he knew he could not ignore it. If these ancient artifacts truly held such power, they needed to be destroyed before they fell into the wrong hands. Determined to see this mission through, he set out for Southtown. Another fighter who found himself unwillingly entangled in the Scrolls legend was Franco Bash. A renowned heavyweight boxer, Franco had retired from the ring to focus on his family, his wife, and young son Junior. Now working as an airplane mechanic at Southtown Airport, he had built a peaceful life, but that peace was about to be shattered. Yamazaki, now deep in his search for the scrolls, took an interest in Franco. In a ruthless display of power, he sent his men to attack Franco's family. Just as his wife and son were about to be taken hostage, Franco intervened, single-handedly taking down the assailants. However, while his wife was saved, his son was not as fortunate. During the chaos, Junior was kidnapped. Shortly after, Yamazaki reached Franco with a cruel ultimatum. If he wanted to see his son alive, he would have to work for him. Franco had no choice. With his son's life on the line, he reluctantly agreed to Yamazaki's demands and became his unwilling pawn in the hunt for the scrolls. The stage was almost set for Geese Howard to begin his plan. His sudden return and takeover of Southtown had not gone unnoticed. The United States government, wary of his growing influence, decided to intervene. They needed someone capable of handling the situation, a specialist with a proven record of results. That person was the free agent known as Blue Mary. Blue Mary, whose real name was Mary Ryan, was both a skilled agent for hire and a formidable martial artist. Born into a family of fighters, she was trained in self-defense techniques by her father, who had once been a Secret Service agent. Later in life, she met Butch, her father's protege, and the two fell in love. It was Butch who introduced her to the martial arts of Sambo, which became her signature fighting style. Their future together seemed certain, with marriage on the horizon. Then tragedy struck. On the same day, both her father and fiancé were killed while protecting the president during a terrorist attack. From that moment on, Mary rarely smiled. But what made her involvement in the Southtown crisis even more personal was a hidden truth from her family's past. Her grandfather, a renowned martial artist who had mysteriously vanished long ago, had been Geese Howard's first martial arts master, and it was widely believed that Geese himself had been responsible for his disappearance, the first man he ever murdered. Now the stage was fully set. All the players had converged on Southtown, each for their own reasons. Terry, Andy, Joe and Mai reunited for the first time in years, only to be shocked by the revelation that Geese was not only alive, but was actively reclaiming control over the city. Hearing the rumors of the Scrolls, the heroes wondered how Geese was tied to it all. Terry, ever the skeptic, had little interest in ancient legends, but Andy could not shake the ominous presence he felt in the air. Something dark was coming. As the fighters clashed and alliances were formed or broken, Yamazaki learned of Terry's presence in Southtown. Intrigued by the legend of the Lone Wolf, he decided to test his strength firsthand. Wasting no time, Yamazaki ambushed Terry, and the two engaged in their first battle. The fight was fierce, with both warriors trading powerful blows. Yamazaki quickly realized just how strong Terry was. Satisfied with the taste of his opponent's power, he abruptly stopped mid-fight and stepped back, smirking. He had no intention of finishing the battle just yet. Instead, he left Terry with a promise: their fight was far from over. In the days that follow, Yamazaki failed to notice that someone had been tracking him all along. His longtime adversary, Detective Hon-Fu, had finally caught up with him. Seeing this as his long-awaited opportunity to capture the infamous criminal, Hon-Fu immediately engaged Yamazaki in battle, determined to take him into custody. Meanwhile, Blue Mary, in the midst of her investigation into Geese Howard, uncovered his long history with Terry. Realizing that Terry might hold crucial information about Geese's plans, she decided to seek him out and offer her assistance. But Terry had already made up his mind about his next move. He would go straight to the source. Without hesitation, he headed to Geese Tower, determined to confirm for himself whether Geese was truly alive and to uncover his true intentions. At the top of the tower, the two eternal rivals stood face to face once more. Billy Khan initially stepped forward, ready to take on Terry himself, but Geese held him back. This was not Billy's fight. Geese wanted to personally measure Terry's strength. The ensuing battle was brutal, with both warriors showcasing how much they had grown since their last encounter. However, this was not the moment Geese sought to avenge his past defeat. He had come only to test Terry, and once he had seen enough, he ended the fight on his own terms. As the two warriors' powerful energy-based attacks collided, flames erupted within the tower. Amidst the fire, Geese stepped back into the shadows, laughing as he disappeared from sight. Terry, shaken by the display of Geese's newfound strength, was about to give chase when a voice called out to him. Looking up, he saw Cheng Xin-zan arriving in a helicopter. The wealthy businessman and information broker had come urgently to find Terry, warning him to stop pursuing Geese. Something even more dangerous was unfolding. Yamazaki had obtained a scroll. Cheng had uncovered the truth about the scroll's power and deduced the real intent behind both Yamazaki and the Jin Twins' actions. There was no time to waste. Hopping aboard the helicopter, Terry and Cheng rushed to the Southtown rail station, where Yamazaki had last been spotted. As they arrived, they found Hon-Fu lying, injured, on the ground. Despite his formidable skills, the Hong Kong detective had been no match for Yamazaki's sheer brutality. Realizing that his true battle was about to begin, Yamazaki faced off against Terry once more. As the Lone Wolf instructed Cheng to take the wounded Hon-Fu to the hospital, he prepared for the fight ahead. The battle was intense, but after a grueling exchange of blows, Terry emerged victorious.
Terry, what? Okay.
Shortly after, Andy and Joe arrived at the rail station, just in time to see Yamazaki, injured but unfazed, grinning through his pain. With a twisted smile, he taunted Terry, warning him that this was only the beginning. Now that he had become involved in the battle for the scrolls, there was no turning back. Terry dismissed Yamazaki's threats, making it clear that he had no interest in the scrolls and ordering him to leave the city. But before anything else could be said, a strange energy filled the air. Without warning, a magical orb materialized around the fighters, engulfing them in a blinding light. In an instant, they vanished from the rail station, transported to an unknown location deep beneath Southtown's Delta Park. Once there, the heroes were greeted by Jin Chonshu, his body no longer his own, now controlled by the sinister spirit of Jin Kairyu. With a cold and menacing glare, he welcomed them, declaring that they had learned too much about the secrets of the scrolls, and for that, they had to be eliminated. A terrifying battle erupted. Jin Chonshu's power, fueled by the ancient curse of his ancestor, was unlike anything Terry and his friends had ever faced. The sheer force of his attacks pushed them to their limits, but after an intense struggle, Terry was able to defeat Chonshu. Forcing the dark spirit's grip on him to be weakened. Just as the battle ended, another presence filled the chamber. Jin Chonrei had arrived. Seeing his younger brother lying on the ground, barely conscious, Chonrei was overcome with fury. Haunted and possessed by the spirit of Jin Kuryu, he unleashed his rage, vowing to destroy the heroes. Chonrei's power was even greater than his brother's. His attacks were relentless, driven by the full force of his ancestor's wrath. Terry and his friends were nearly annihilated, barely able to hold their ground. But through sheer perseverance, they managed to turn the tide. Terry, summoning every last ounce of his strength, delivered the final blow, bringing Chonrei to his knees. The battle had been so fierce that Andy was left injured. With both brothers defeated, the spirits of Kairyu and Kuryu could no longer maintain their hold. Without the scrolls fully gathered, their possession was incomplete. The dark energy dissipated and the spirits were destroyed once and for all. Jin Chonshu and Jin Chonrei slowly regained consciousness, unaware of what had happened. As the heroes looked upon the two confused and exhausted boys, they realized the tragic truth. The twins were nothing more than victims, caught in a battle far beyond their control. Moved by their plight, Terry and the others decided to figure out a way to help the orphans. The battle for the scrolls was over. Yamazaki, having been defeated, had vanished without a trace. Hon-Fu, now recovered from his injuries, resumed his hunt for the fugitive criminal. With Yamazaki gone, Franco Bash was finally freed from his forced servitude. No longer bound by his tormentor, he was able to track down and rescue his son Junior. The events surrounding the scrolls had also forged new bonds. Terry and Blue Mary, having fought side by side, found an unexpected camaraderie, one that, for the first time in years, made Blue Mary smile again. As the dust settled, Terry found himself wandering alone by the Southtown docks. Lost in thought, Geese was back. Southtown, once again under his rule, stood at the brink of another dark era. Could the city ever be free of its chains? As he pondered the future, his thoughts were interrupted by a young orphan boy. There was something familiar about him that reminded Terry of his own younger self, alone and struggling to survive. The boy introduced himself as Rock. He had no home, no family. Without hesitation, Terry made a decision. Just as Jeff had once taken him in, he would do the same for Rock. Unknown to everyone, as the events unfolded in Delta Park, Geese had used the distraction to secure the final Scroll of Immortality. After decades of pursuit, after manipulating countless warriors, He finally had all the three in his possession. Yet nothing happened. No surge of power, no immortality. Geese Howard, the Emperor of Southtown, stood in silence, staring at the ancient artifact in his hands. Then he laughed, a deep, mocking laugh. The legend of the scrolls was nothing more than a hoax. With a smirk, he tossed them aside and ordered Billy Khan to dispose of them. They were worthless. Now that he had established his dominance over Southtown, Geese turned his attention to his next move. He would remind the world of his power, and so he announced the next King of Fighters tournament. But was the legend of the scrolls truly a hoax? Or could it be that the might of these ancient artifacts and power went unnoticed by Geese? Time will tell. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Big shout out and thanks to the channel's patrons and premium subscribers. Without you, this content would not be possible. You can become a premium subscriber or a patron by checking the link in the description below. Premium subscribers and patrons get early access to videos as well as other digital goodies. Until next time, thank you guys for watching.